There's a level of you've achieved a certain level of experience in your career, and I no longer have to do that low level thing. And I think that's so important to know how to be able to do that and to know that we win as a team. We have a tenure within our senior folks well over a decade. And you think about that within the technology sector where most people are shopping jobs every 2 to 4 years. It just is countercultural in a lot of ways. Each person has a specifically assigned mentor that's trying to help them think through the strategic moves that they're making within their career. I mean, so much of what we build is things that don't exist, and it requires collaboration with our clients. It's this idea that we want to always be trying new things that we can do to get better, but that there are no failed experiments. There's only more data. Having that constant experimentation culture means that we can always be learning and growing and trying new things. Your development as a technical engineer has a certain growth path. Up through the mid-levels, that is the thing you need to focus on. Focus on becoming excellent. What I love about the consulting side of it is we get to dive in and learn our clients' businesses, like what really moves the needle.
Welcome to the Culture from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. In a business world where employees and customers crave authenticity and trust, hosts Larry Levine and Darrell are on a mission to find and showcase heart-centered executives and the companies they lead. You are about to hear an inspiring conversation with a visionary leader that's bringing heart into the workplace, empowering employees, serving their clients, and uplifting communities, all to create true success. This is Culture from the Heart. The movement starts here. Let's begin.
Welcome to Culture from the Heart. I'm your co-host, Darrell here today with Larry Levine, and we're joined by Caleb Woods. He's the CEO and Senior Software Craftsman at Role Model Software, leading a team that crafts custom software that's tailored to clients' businesses by collaborating with them. Caleb, welcome to Culture from the Heart. We're so glad you're here.
Hi, excited to be here. It's going to be a good conversation.
Thank you for investing your time with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, as we get started, you know the question, Caleb, that every guest on the Culture from the Heart podcast answers. And that is, what does Culture from the Heart mean to you?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, culture for us, and especially thinking of like, how does that come out in a software company? Something that is kind of devoid of heart in some ways. You know, the classic way of thinking about software developers is, you know, you lock them in a room and you slide pizza under the door every once in a while to keep them
cooler
fed.
Full of Red Bulls, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, the energy drinks, the pizza, but so much of what we do is we want to invest in our clients' businesses and also in the team that we have here at Role Model. And so it's taking on instead a servant leadership approach that really underpins everything that we do. And so, you know, that's is embodied in the way that I designed the new space that we moved into about a year ago. Like I have a spot in the bullpen just like everybody else on the team. There's not really a differentiation of where people sit or what the hierarchies are, trying to be a flat organization, but also one that is really investing in people, because people and relationships is both how our business grows and how we deliver things for our clients.
Oh, this is so good. Hey, Caleb, I'm just curious, what was the inspiration behind all of this? Because you used the word devoid of trust just a little bit ago. Or what's the inspiration? Walk us through, what was the light bulb moment that got you thinking, you know what? We got to do things a whole lot different when it comes to building culture.
Yeah. So I'm not the original founder of Role Model Software. I'm the second generation CEO. The original founder, Ken Auer, another Christ follower, and desired to kind of leave the rat race of what he was seeing in the consulting world that he was building and really build a culture that could be sustainable, which is kind of a different thing in the technology sector, to have a software company where you're not just trying to figure out how fast can you burn people out and how can you have long-term sustainability around that. And so it was around 2015, I joined the team in 2012, where we were recognizing we had been all in person and we had built really this craftsmanship mindset. And I could get into that a little bit more too, of how we think about that. But we wanted to build a culture that could expand the business. And we recognized that meant we had to grow our locations where people were kind of embrace the remote work side of things. So we still really value that in-person collaboration. But we also value what are the tools and touch points. And so we really invested a lot in how do we have shared understanding of what the culture is that we're building and how we're going to do that together. And so we bring the team together a couple times a year, or 4 times a year, I should say, to be able to invest in experiments and our annual company retreat to bring in families. And it's one of those things where you don't see the direct impact of what comes from those things, but you see the culture that's built year over year. As we have a tenure within our senior folks of well over a decade. And you think about that within the technology sector, where most people are shopping jobs every 2 to 4 years, it just is countercultural in a lot of ways.
Powerful. When you brought this concept early on in the conversation about servant leadership as a core part of culture, what is servant leadership from your perspective, and how does that apply in your industry?
In a lot of ways, it's leading by example. So being willing to get your hands dirty and do the basics. So whether that's cleaning bathrooms, taking out the trash, the simple things around the office, but also just being able to spend time with people and jump in to solve problems. I think it's one of the, while I don't work on projects day to day anymore, it's still one of my favorite things to jump in with somebody and troubleshoot a problem. And get a chance to do that and work through and solve something that really matters. That's a lot of what we think about in what role model is. So from a technology company, there's a lot of different directions we could go. We could have products, we could have services that we provide to our clients, but we've really focused on service. Like, we are a serving organization that delivers that to our clients, and we want to do that excellently.
Oh, this is so good, and I still want to play on the whole conversation we're having around servant leadership. Why do you think that's so mission critical today? I think more so now than ever before. The whole aspect of servant leadership.
You just don't see a whole lot of sacrifice, so that there's a level of, you've achieved a certain level of cloud or experience in your career, and I no longer have to do that low level thing. And I think that's so important to know how to be able to do that and to know that we win as a team. And that's a big part of it is, this idea that we're doing this together. And while there is going to be somebody that gets the credit that led the team, if they're really reflecting that on the members of their team that helped to accomplish it, it builds so much more in when we win as a team than it would be if I or any one individual got the glory.
I love the mindset and the heart set behind this. And I'm really looking forward to diving into this concept of the craftsman. I think that's a very interesting word. So let's do this. We're going to take a brief break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to dive into this topic of a craftsman culture right here with our friend Caleb Woods. At Culture from the Heart, we believe that great leaders put their people first, leading with empathy and purpose. That's why we're thrilled to partner with Learn It, a global leader in learning for over 30 years, to bring you an exclusive offer: 45 days of free, unlimited training for your team with a minimum of 5 participants.
This isn't just about skills. It's about creating a culture where your people feel valued, supported, and empowered to grow. Did you know that 94% of employees are more likely to stay at companies that invest in their development? Culture from the Heart means giving your team the tools they need to thrive, not just for today, but for the future.
Learn It's courses help your team master essential skills like communication, collaboration, and emotional intelligence, all foundations of a people-first workplace. It's about fostering resilience, connection, and growth.
Don't wait. Visit learnit.com/culture to claim your 45 days of free training and start building a workplace where your people and your business can thrive.
That's learnit.com/culture. Start enhancing your learning culture today. Welcome back to Culture from the Heart. Let's pick up where we left off with Caleb Woods on this cool topic about a craftsman culture. Unpack this word craftsman for us. It's someone who likes woodwork as a hobby. I really, really like this word craftsman. And it's not one that you normally hear applied to a software development team.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, what we look at with software is that it's a lot like a lot of the traditional trades that you think of being blue collar jobs, where if you want to become an electrician, one of the first things you have to do is you got to get some basic training, but then you're
Mhm.
going to be apprenticed to an electrician who's really a craftsman, an expert in their field, and they know all the gotchas, all that they've seen so many different things from the different projects that they've been a part of. And we see the same thing actually happens in software, is that you have this experience that's built over time. And it's one of the advantages of running a consulting firm, because we work with so many different clients and we have kind of the rotations that happen within our team. We can develop this understanding of what does it mean to craft excellent software. And craftsmanship is interesting when you think about software, because unlike you mentioned woodworking, I would often describe that as fine craftsmanship. Like a
Mm.
perfect Amish bookshelf that it is impeccable, will last generations.
Mhm.
At the same time, we don't want to have quite that same mindset when we come to the software things we're building, because they're going to change. So the craftsmanship is, how do we do this in a lean way? What are the things
Mhm.
that we want to trade off now? How do we make things easier to change in the future? How do we get those short feedback loops so that we're building on the things that really matter and provide value for our partners and their clients?
Oh, this is good. I like sitting there talking to somebody who's not very crafty when it comes to some of the things that you all are talking about. But nevertheless, I still want to play on the word craftsmanship for just a
Mhm.
moment. Caleb, is if I could get you to think about your people for a moment.
Yeah.
And if we brought some of them on randomly and said, how would they define craftsmanship? And what's that mean to them? What do you think they might say?
I think they would probably point to excellence
Good.
in a lot of ways. What is excellence in understanding what we do and how we do it? We've spent a lot of time over the last year, as well as trying to better define what our core values are and how they're played out. And so, when we think about craftsmanship, it's also embodied in our theme for this year of discipline, professionalism. The folks that are leaning into getting better at their craft and doing that as a true professional.
I can see that. So, what are some things you do as a company to support this discipline, professionalism, this craftsman mindset, this excellence?
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, we grow a lot of our own talent. So we start things out with our Craftsmanship Academy. And so that's where we're bringing in a batch of pretty fresh people to the industry every year is our goal. And so we do that in a cohort, because often you learn from folks that are at the similar space and time that you are in your career development. And so that learning from each other and from those more experienced is a really beneficial thing. And then we continue that mentorship all throughout everyone's tenure at Role Model. Each person has a specifically assigned mentor that's trying to help them think through the strategic moves that they're making within their career. And then we continue that idea of these cohorts at the different levels that exist. So our kind of junior, mid-level, and senior folks, as well as our craftsmen, sometimes we refer to as the craftsmen, the round table, taking the King Arthur kind of concept out of
I
that. Because you got to
picture a
have fun with some
joust.
puns. Yes,
The
exactly.
joust, that's it.
Well, and we think of swords as really a mark of craftsmanship too.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's another way. It's part of what the T in our logo is tying into that as well. And so, we develop these opportunities, and then as a team, we do a lunch and learn once a week where we dive into a topic, and we've been working through specific books or materials where, hey, we're gonna read this together. We're gonna create some shared culture around something we're doing, and then we're gonna discuss it, looking at what are the practical application of how we can actually take this into our work, and not just that was a great idea.
Yeah. Wow.
And I can imagine you're probably, as a leadership team, you're probably meeting on a regular basis to figure out how to recraft some of this. So, expanding on what's working really well,
Yeah.
but then also you're probably looking at areas where, where do we need to take a right turn or a left turn on this? I'd imagine.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's our quarterly vision days are a big part of that. Like, reflecting over the last 90 days, what's been working well, what trends are really hitting, what things do we need to be thinking about as the big steps to make, and that's the dynamic nature of our business, because we are a very service oriented business. We don't generally put together, 2 to 3 year roadmaps of what we're doing within the business, because I can't tell you what projects we'll be working on in 2 years, let alone in some cases, 2 months from now, depending on, which members of the team or what clients we'll be serving.
Yeah, it's such a dynamic environment. I love this concept of the craftsman, the guild, working on this. I am curious, like, what are some of the books that you've been reading as a team over the last little while that have really impacted you in these cohort lunch and learns?
Yeah. Well, I have a big five of books that I've shared with the team over the last little bit. And so right now we are working through as a whole company the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willingham and Leif Babin. One of my all-time favorites there. Last year we went through Impact Players by Liz Wiseman. Again, a lot of great ideas, very complementary to Extreme Ownership. We talk a lot about crucial conversations as a set of tools and leaning into those hard conversations that need to happen. With our junior folks, we really emphasize Atomic Habits from James Clear as a really good recipe book of here's ways to think about divining your environment and the systems that go into growth. And then questions are a superpower in a lot of ways. And so I love the book, The Coaching Habit, as a great set of 7 powerful questions to think about. Just even the simple one of what's on your mind is a great way to start a lot of different conversations. And so that's what you'll hear across the office quite often.
Wow, Larry, not a single one of those books was how to program in Python.
It is not.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you see this, I tell guys all the time, it's like your development as a technical engineer has a certain growth path. Up through the mid-levels, that is the thing you need to focus on. Focus on becoming excellent in a particular technology stack, the set of things that we do, the way we think about test-driven development, the fundamentals of what we do. But if you want to take your career beyond that level, it's going to come down to how you engage with people, how you motivate and lead people, how you understand and communicate. I mean, so much of what we build is things that don't exist, and it requires collaboration with our clients. So it's how do you get your ideas across or extract the things that they're thinking? If we're describing the same pen and you have a different idea of that pen than I do, and we go build it and we don't have the right feedback loops to communicate well about that, we're not going to be a good partner because we've gone in the wrong direction and not delivered well.
You know what's really interesting about this, plus you gave me some book ideas, by the way, Caleb, is this almost takes the software developer's mindset and then it retools it into this is why I'm really doing what I'm doing, if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly.
Yeah. I mean, I think about it as my job, I'm not necessarily a technologist. I mean, I like technology, but really it's about solving business problems. We just get to do that with technology for the most part. And what I love about the consulting side of it is we get to dive in and learn our clients' businesses, like what really moves the needle. What are the things that we can unlock for them? And it's when we can embrace that and then combine that with the technology tools and ways of thinking about it that really the possibilities become endless of what we could accomplish together.
Wow, this story keeps getting more and more interesting. So we've got more coming your way after the break, including highlights of how Caleb has engineered a space that helps foster this craftsman culture in his organization. See you in a moment. At Culture from the Heart, we know that hiring the right salespeople and leaders for your company is about more than just resumes. It's about finding individuals who have what it takes to succeed. That's why we're excited to offer candidate assessments from Selling from the Heart to help ensure you make great hiring decisions for your sales team.
Based on data from surveys of over 2.2 million sales professionals and sales leaders, these assessments benchmark your candidates against the core skills of top-performing salespeople and leaders. You'll gain unparalleled insight into their potential, uncovering whether they have the mindset, abilities, and behaviors needed to thrive in your organization.
It's not just about filling a role. It's about ensuring that every sales hire aligns with your culture and contributes to your success. Don't leave your next hire to chance.
Visit sellingfromtheheart.net/hiring and discover how candidate assessments can help you build a winning team. Make your next hire with confidence because your business deserves the best.
Thanks for listening to that break. Now let's get back to the heart of this episode. Caleb, early on in our conversation, you talked about the environment that you've crafted for your people to help develop this craftsman culture. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah. So, like, one of the principles that really came out of the founding of Role Model was this embracing of extreme programming principles. And later that really got codified in the Agile Manifesto. So, things like people over process and thinking about what does the collaboration look like and how do we do that well together? So we have this mantra that two sets of eyes will review every bit of production code that goes out because we think we see better quality of what comes of that. And so a lot of that is even designing the space so that we can sit together. So it's not a bunch of individual desks, but each desk is a two-person workstation, if not, kind of three side by side, where monitors can be shared, can be working on some of the same code and pieces together in real time. And when I mentioned earlier, our shift from everybody being in the same location about 10 years ago to having people and we have a satellite office up in Wisconsin, and then we have a few other people that are in a few other remote locations throughout the Eastern and Central time zones. How do we collaborate well together? So it comes down to let's invest in the right sort of microphones and technology to be able to have calls. We designed a big open space so that there's a lot of ways we can reconfigure that for when we bring the whole team together every quarter and work on experiments. And then there's also lots of different side rooms so that we can take some of those phone calls or client meetings and be able to interact. And so in a lot of ways, we design a remote first culture with as much in-person collaboration as we can have.
Oh, I like this. And I still want to play on this collaboration. So what have you learned now about collaboration as opposed to possibly what collaboration was before you started making all these changes?
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, how do you pull the most out of people? We've learned a lot of like the group dynamics of collaboration. How small do you need a conversation to be to make it effective? There's another magic rule of 7. 7 plus or minus 2 is kind of the ideal team size. It's kind of the same thing when you're talking about a group discussion or a training that you're doing or almost any meeting. If you get beyond that 7 plus or minus 2, you start to get into the realm of where somebody's not going to participate. They're not going to jump into the conversation. And so what are the techniques of pulling that in? Have a lot of developers that are very analytical. Have a lot of developers that are analytical, and they would like to really think about a problem before they jump into it. And so what that means is you want to present information ahead of time to have a fruitful discussion about it. And, actually go around the room and draw people into that collaboration because we want to focus on results and everybody contributing. And if you're not contributing, then it's a great opportunity to say, maybe this meeting shouldn't include you, and a lot of different kind of coaching that we've done around that.
Very, very cool. Well, I know we have listeners listening in from all different kinds of industries and leading in different spaces, but this topic of this craftsman culture and this mentality of excellence, what advice would you give to other leaders listening to this and going, I'm really intrigued by this craftsman culture?
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, I think it starts with experiments. So that's one of the things that I brought to the team many years ago is this idea that we want to always be trying new things that we can do to get better, but that there are no failed experiments. There's only more data. And that really is an attempt and hopefully a safety that we can bring around that to say, you can try new things because it's okay if it doesn't work out better than we thought it would. Not every experiment that we try is going to say, we love that, let's adopt it. Sometimes it's going to be, that gave us some more data. All right, now we can shift here. But having that constant experimentation culture means that we can always be learning and growing and trying new things. Like, what are the new tools that we want to collaborate with? How are we expanding upon those? And that's some of the advantage of having an ever-growing team that's bringing in new concepts. Even though we don't have a whole lot of turnover, we have a whole lot of investment that people are growing in the team and how we're onboarding even more junior people. And so sometimes they're bringing new tools or techniques that we haven't seen before. And then how do we pull those in to what the rest of the organization is doing.
Hey, this ties so well into what we were talking about in the previous segment around servant leadership, because what this is telling me is, hey, we're okay trying new things because I, as Caleb and my leadership team, we're right there with you. We're diving into this head on just with all of you. So if this doesn't work, we're all going to fail forward, and we're all going to come back collectively and go, okay, what could we have done a little bit different next time?
Yeah. And then trying to set up a safe space of where we can do that. So I mentioned kind of pulling everybody together once a quarter. Like that's part of our collaboration of having those face-to-face interactions and working with people that you might not work with on a regular basis. But it also allows us to have strategic investments in, experiments that we know are not going to deliver something in the 2 days that we spend on it. It's really a learning experience to figure out what's next. And that's a worthwhile investment. We just want to, strategize about which of those to make and how we can do those together.
Amazing. Amazing. What an incredible story. What a unique perspective in a space that you wouldn't normally think of the word craftsman being used. All of this is just so inspirational. Caleb, I just want to say a sincere thank you for all of our listeners, of course, from me and Larry, for being a light and doing what you're doing. And you've truly inspired us today. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your heart with us.
Awesome. Glad to.
Oh, this is good stuff.
Yeah. What an amazing story. And I think about this concept of blending the servant leadership with a craftsman culture, the cohorts when the new people come in, the lunch and learns where they're not reading books on their craft per se. They understand their craft is more than software. It's actually interacting with people and solving business problems. Just so inspirational. I love this conversation with Caleb.
Same here. And the two words that just are bubbling to the surface is trust and credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And, unfortunately, in some organizations, we're swimming for trust and we're swimming for credibility. It's not the case with Caleb and his team. I can tell you that.
No question. And if we need software, we know where we're going to call first. What an amazing mindset. Well, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for everyone who is liking or leaving reviews on this show. It helps us spread the word as we're going around the country, even around the world, showcasing the leaders and their companies who have amazing cultures. We do believe that culture is the heartbeat of every organization. And as Caleb has reminded us, it's about servant leadership and a craftsman mindset. So thank you for joining us today on Culture from the Heart. Until next time, lead with your heart and watch your culture thrive.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover heart-centered leaders shaping extraordinary company cultures. To access a leader guide with notes from this week's episode, simply click the link in the show notes or visit us at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Do you know a CEO who's built a culture from the heart? We'd love to hear their story. Head over to www.culturefromtheheart.com and click the Nominate Your CEO button. Until next time, remember, great cultures start with the heart.